If I could turn back time, I would never have answered that message. I would have ignored his eyes, his charm, his promises, because the cost of loving him, it broke every piece of me. Adanna sat on her bedroom floor, surrounded by the quiet echo of a life that no longer made sense. Her phone buzzed constantly, family, friends, colleagues, but she ignored them all. What was she supposed to say? That the man she had planned her whole future with was someone else's husband. That the fairy tale she bragged about to everyone had been a carefully curated lie. She had always been careful, always listened to her instincts, but this time, she let her heart lead her off a cliff. It all started 14 months ago. Adanna was a 29-year-old creative writer working remotely from her cozy Lagos apartment. She wasn't looking for love. She had just healed from a painful breakup and her life was finally falling into place. She had a loyal circle of friends, a growing online audience, and a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. But then he messaged her on Instagram. His name was Jide, polished, poetic, mysterious. He had been following her content for a while and finally gathered the courage to send a message. Or so he claimed. Your words have a way of making the world feel a little softer, he had written. Just one sentence, that's all it took. At first, she didn't reply. Then, curiosity got the better of her. He didn't come off as pushy or flirty, just genuinely interested in her mind. They started talking about books, about life, about the chaos or chaos of the world and the silence inside of it. Jide was intelligent, funny, heartbreakingly gentle. Over time, his presence became routine: morning texts, midday check-ins, late-night calls that bled into sleep. He was everything her ex wasn't: attentive, kind, emotionally stable. Also, she thought. When they finally met in person, it was like falling into something familiar, like they had known each other before in a different life. He said he was divorced with no kids, focused on rebuilding his life and not ready to rush into anything serious. But the way he held her, the way he looked at her, it all felt too real to be temporary. Adanna didn't tell her friends at first. She wasn't ready for questions, for warnings, for raised eyebrows. She wanted to figure out what this connection truly was without outside noise. By the third month, he started spending weekends at her place. He would cook, do laundry, leave little notes on her fridge. He never posted her, never let her tag him. He said he was a private person, traumatized from his messy divorce. And she believed him. She didn't see the signs then. The weekends he had to travel urgently. The moment he would rush out to take a call from his boss. The sudden cancellations. The night she would wake up and find him staring at the ceiling, lost in thoughts. She thought he was dealing with trauma. She gave him grace. She gave him space. She gave him everything. But love makes you blind, doesn't it? And the thing about secrets, they don't stay hidden forever. Adanna was a woman who trusted the universe. She believed that when people entered your life with gentleness, they were sent by something divine. So even when the little cracks began to form, she painted over them with hope. It was a Sunday morning when she first felt the whisper of doubt. Jide had spent the weekend with her and everything felt perfect, too perfect. He made her breakfast in bed, read her one of her favorite poetry pieces, and they danced barefoot in the kitchen while the jollof rice simmered on low heat. But then his phone rang. It was an unknown number and he silenced it immediately. Adanna noticed the shift in his expression. His eyes darted away, his fingers trembling just slightly as he tucked the phone into his pocket. "Everything okay?" she asked. He smiled too quickly. "Yeah, just a client. I'll call them back later." He kissed her forehead, but the warmth in his lips didn't reach his eyes. Later that night, after he left, she found herself thinking about the moment. Why did he silence the call? Why didn't he answer? And why did her stomach twist every time she thought about it? She shook it off. She had no reason not to trust him. He was good to her. He listened. He cared. Didn't he? Weeks passed, but the unease didn't. He became more distant, not entirely, but subtly. He still sent good morning texts, he still called, but his weekends became harder to secure. He always had a reason: work, a conference, a sick relative. And she, always understanding, always patient, believed every word. But her heart was starting to whisper things her mind didn't want to hear. One night, while they were on a video call, she heard a voice in the background, a child's voice. "Daddy, I want." The scream froze. Jide's face went blank for a second before the call cut. Adanna stared at her phone, her heart pounding. When he called back 2 minutes later, he said he was at his cousin's house, that the child was his niece, that it was nothing. But that voice, it hadn't sounded like a niece. It had said, "Daddy." She laughed nervously and asked, "You sure you are not hiding a secret kid somewhere?" Jide chuckled too, but his eyes didn't match his laughter. "Come on, you know me. If I had a kid, I would tell you. I would love you to know everything." But he hadn't, and she knew it now. She just didn't know what exactly he was hiding. The unraveling started slowly. Her best friend Lami was the first to say it aloud. "I don't want to be the one to plant doubts," she said carefully. "But Adanna, are you sure you know this man?" Adanna grew defensive. She hated how her voice cracked when she replied, "Of course I do. We've been together for almost a year. He's just private." Lami looked at her with the kind of gaze that only best friends have, the kind that pierces through your soul. Sometimes people hide behind privacy to protect their lies. That sentence haunted her for days. She finally decided to do something she swore she would never do. She followed the whispers. She went looking for the truth. It started innocently. She searched his name on Facebook. Nothing came up, at least not much. His profile was private, with just a blurry photo and no recent updates. But when she remembered something months ago, he had tagged a family business page on one of her conversations. She found it, and there, hidden deep in the about section of that business page, was a tagged user, a woman. She clicked. The woman's page was public, and there, in her latest photo, was Jide, holding her hand, wearing a matching outfit, and surrounded by two kids. Then caption read, Happy 5th anniversary to the love of my life. Through every storm we made it. Here is to forever, my king. Adanna's world stopped spinning. The blood in her veins froze. Her heart broke into so many pieces. She couldn't breathe. Jide wasn't divorced. Jide wasn't even separated. He was married with a whole family, and she was the secret. The pain didn't come in a wave, it came in silence. Adanna sat still for hours, staring at the photo of Jide and his wife. His smile in that picture, it was the same one he wore when he cooked in her kitchen, when he held her hand and told her he loved her, when he whispered promises about a future he had no intention of giving her. It was all a lie. Her first instinct was to scream, to cry, to break something, to call Lami and collapse into her hands. But she didn't do any of that. Instead, she gathered every screenshot, every message, every time-stamped photo he sent her. She printed them, lined them up, pieced together, and puzzle that had been mocking her all this time. She needed answers. She needed to see him. She sent a message. Can you come over tomorrow night? I need to talk to you. It's important. He replied instantly. Of course, baby. Is everything okay? She didn't respond. He came the next evening like nothing was wrong. He wore that same black hoodie she loved, the one she used to steal just so she could fall asleep with his scent. He walked in smiling, leaning in to kiss her. But she stepped back, and that was when he knew. What's going on? He asked cautiously. Adanna didn't speak. She just picked up the stack of printed photos and dropped them on the table between them. Tell me, she said, who is she? Jide's face changed, not with guilt, not with shock, with fear. He didn't even ask how she found out. He just sat down and exhaled. I wanted to tell you, he said, barely above whisper. Adanna laughed. It was the kind of laughter that sounded like it was choking. You wanted to tell me. You've been in my house, in my life, in my heart for almost a year. I planned a life with you, and you have a wife, 2 children, and a whole second life, and you wanted to tell me? I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't come to you with bad intentions. That sentence hit her like a slap. No, you just came to me as a liar. He rubbed his hands over his face. It started out harmless. It was hurting. My marriage was falling apart. I was lost. You were light. You were peace. She stepped back. Don't romanticize what you did. You cheated on your wife. You built a fake world with me. You let me love you. I do love you, he said, standing. I fell in love with you. I didn't plan it, but I did. Don't, she said sharply. Her voice broke. Don't say that. You don't get to say that. What was a long silence? You broke it with your character, with your deceit. There was a long silence. Tears streamed down her face, not just from the betrayal, but from the grief of what she lost. The version of him she thought was real. She looked at him, really looked at him, and at the first time, he didn't look like home. He looked like danger, like every woman's worst nightmare. Leave, she said quietly. He didn't move. So she screamed it this time. Leave. Jide stood there for a moment, breathing heavily. I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't mean to hurt you. But he did. He shattered her, and then he walked out. Out of her house, out of her life, and out of the fantasy she had built around him. That night, Adanna cried until there were no tears left. She couldn't sleep, she couldn't eat, she couldn't even breathe without feeling like a fool. She remembered every I love you, every soft smile, every lie told with confidence, and she realized something heartbreaking. She had never truly known him, not even a little. The next morning, she opened her curtains and watched the sun rise, and for the first time, she didn't reach for her phone to check if he had messaged because deep down she didn't want him to. This wasn't a love story anymore, it was a warning. Heartbreak is a strange kind of death. You wake up every day mourning someone who is still alive, someone who chose to lie instead of love, someone who promised you a future while building one with someone else. Adanna had never felt this kind of pain before, not even during her last breakup, because that was mutual. It made sense. This was robbery. She didn't just lose Jide. She lost the version of herself that believed in him. For days, her apartment felt haunted. His toothbrush was still in her bathroom. His slippers still by the door. His cologne, her favorite scent, lingered on her pillow like a cruel reminder. She thought about deleting everything, the pictures, the texts, the videos, but she couldn't, not yet. Because letting go meant accepting that none of it was real, and her heart wasn't ready for that. Lami came over 3 days later and found Adanna in same pajamas she had worn since the confrontation. She said nothing, just climbed into bed with her, pulled the blanket over them both and held her. Cry if you want to, she whispered, and she did. She cried like a woman who was trying to unlove a ghost. I should have known, Adanna wept. I saw the signs, Lami. I felt them, but I ignored them because I wanted it to be real. We all do, Lami said. That doesn't make you stupid, that makes you human. I built everything around him. I imagined kids, a house, morning, nights. I thought I was safe. And now, Lami asked softly. Adanna's voice cracked. Now I feel like I don't even know who I am without him. Healing didn't come in a day, it came in small, brutal steps. She started therapy. She wrote letters she never sent. She listened to sad music until it hurt too much, then sat in silence until the silence became bearable. She talked to women online forums, read books about betrayal, wrote poems about grief. She even tried dating again twice, but both times she froze when the men tried to get close. Because how do you trust again when someone you loved held your hand with one and stabbed you with the other? She needed time, she needed space, and slowly something inside her began to shift. One evening, almost 2 months after everything ended, she got a message from an unknown number. I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were involved. Adanna frowned. Who is this? She replied. His wife. I found your number on a receipt in his car. I saw the text, the pictures, everything. I just wanted to say thank you. She stared at the screen, stunned. Thank you for showing me the truth. I left him. Adanna's hand trembled. This woman, the one Jide said he was divorced from, had been living in the same lie just like her. And now, she too had walked away. Adanna typed slowly. I'm so sorry. I didn't know he was married. If I had known, I would have never. I know, the woman replied. You were a victim just like me. And with that, a small strange wave of peace washed over Adanna. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't imagining things. She had been betrayed, yes, but now she was no longer carrying the guilt of it anymore. That night, Adanna stood by her window and looked at the stars. She wasn't feeling hid. She still had questions, still had trust issues, still had wounds that would take time to scar. But she had survived, and sometimes survival was enough. She whispered into the night, I love the man who didn't exist, but I'm still here, and I still believe love is out there, just not the kind that hides in shadows. And with that, she turned off the lights and went to bed. For the first time in weeks, she slept peacefully. Since months later, the woman who stared back at Adanna in the mirror was different. Not broken, not bitter, but rebuilt piece by piece, scar by scar. She had gone through fire and didn't survive. She transformed. The old Adanna used to chase closure. The new Adanna, she created it. She no longer flinched when she heard Jide's name. It had become just another word, a memory with no power. She had blocked his number, archived the text, and finally, after a long cry, deleted their photos. She no longer stalked his social media, no longer played what if in her head. She accepted the truth. Some people came into your life, or some people come into your life to teach you what love is not. And once you learn, you never let yourself settle again. Adanna started journaling daily. She posted her story anonymously on a women's forum, and to her surprise, hundreds of women replied, each with their own tale of heartbreak. Some had fallen for married men unknowingly, some were wives who had been betrayed, some were simply women tired of being lied to. And Adanna, she became a quiet voice of strength. She replied to them one by one, encouraging, holding space, sharing truth. Her pain had given birth to purpose. One day, she was walking through a bookstore when she heard a familiar voice behind her. Adanna. She turned around. Jide. He looked smaller somehow, not physically but emotionally, like the weight of everything had finally caught up with him. He smiled faintly. I didn't think I would see you again. She nodded. I didn't think I would want to. A pause. You look good, he said. I am, she replied simply. There was another silence. He looked at her, eyes filled with what ifs. But she didn't ask questions. She didn't need answers, not anymore. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, he said, properly. Not just for what I did, but for the lies, for the dreams I sold you. You didn't deserve that. She gave a soft smile. Thank you, but your apology isn't for me anymore. It's for you. I forgave you a long time ago, not because you earned it, but because I needed to be free. He looked down, visibly humbled. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, he said. Adanna took a breath, looked at him straight in the eyes, and replied, I know. And with that, she walked away. No tears, no regrets, no turning back. That night, she lit a candle in her apartment and whispered a quiet prayer, not for him, for herself, for the girl who once thought love meant sacrificing her intuition, for the woman who had risen from the ashes, for the future she was finally ready to claim. Months later, Adanna gave a TED-style talk titled The Day I Fell for a Man with a Secret Family and How It Saved Me. She stood in front of hundreds of women, confident and calm, sharing her story not as a victim but as a survivor, a woman who learned that self-love is the deepest form of protection. The audience clapped, some cried, some stood up and hugged her afterward, and in that moment she realized this wasn't the end of her story, it was the beginning of a brand new one. She fell for a man with a secret family, but she rose as a woman who would never again apologize for demanding honesty, dignity, and love that wasn't built on lies. She didn't just heal, she came home to herself, and that was the greatest love story of all. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe. Thank you. Subscribe. Thank you.